All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is our first class period in regards to the new section. We are on Chapter 8 today, okay? So you should have those PowerPoints, slides, so you can watch those. What do we have left? 8. We skipped 7. We don't cover Chapter 7 in this class, okay? So we have Chapter 8, 9, 10, and 11, and then we are done. So we are more than half done. It seems like we just started, but we're probably 2/3 of the way through the class, nearly 2/3, okay? This chapter that we're going to talk about today is on cache and internal controls. Does anybody know what internal controls are? Anybody want to give a layperson's definition of internal controls? Take a guess. Don't read from your book.
Where company controls their stuff?
Yeah, that's potentially part of it. Yeah, that's part of it. What? Keeping track of their employees, that's right. Okay. The internal controls are both of what you said they're encompassed into this definition, and I'm not giving you like a specific book definition. You can read that if you want. But the internal controls are the rules and procedures a company has in place to safeguard its assets, to promote efficiency in its operations, those sort of things. Okay. How many here work at or have ever worked at retail? Anybody work retail? Okay. I've asked this before, and I can't remember where y'all work. Where do you work, y'all?
There's this like men's warehouse type place.
Men's Warehouse. Zach?
Like Toys R Us, and then
You worked at Toys R Us?
I did last Christmas.
Really?
It was awful.
I can only imagine how awful it is. Lots of snotty-nosed little kids running up and down aisles.
Yeah.
Where'd you work, Brian?
Grocery store.
Okay. Lauren?
Party
Party
City.
City?
Yep.
Anna? Walmart. Okay. Did any of these places that you ever had, did any of them ever suffer employee theft?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. I have a student from my other class that works at Best Buy. Okay. And generally, he confirmed what I've always thought, is that they really have more trouble with employee theft than customer theft. I don't know if you found that where you work or not, but they are very worried about their employees stealing things. Okay. I can remember, when I was a kid, I used to always see these shoplifters will be prosecuted and all those sort of things. But from what I've heard, they're really more worried about the employees than they are the customers. The customers as well. Okay. Have any of you don't have to give names or anything, have any of you ever heard of theft going on at your own store? Okay. Gil? Yeah? Any stories that anybody wants to tell? Lauren?
That I used to work with would break the boxes on stuff, and then
Is that where?
Party City was like 3 years ago, and he would do is he would break the boxes on stuff, and then they'd put it in the unsellable basket or whatever, and then they just would leave stuff in there for like months, and then he would just like take it out of there
Yeah.
if he wanted something.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Good.
it was Party City, so it like wasn't really that important, whatever it was, I guess.
Yeah. Any other stories? Now let me remind you, you are on camera, so don't confess to any crimes that you personally may have committed. Okay? But anything else that you've heard of?
At Target, there was a guy. I worked at Target as well, and there was a guy in electronics that when iPods and PlayStations would come in, he'd take them and sell them on eBay.
Yeah. You have to be real careful. Somebody told me at a well-known furniture place here in town that they will pay the truck delivery guy to leave for a while, and then they'll take a couple couches off the truck and when they're delivering to the store, and then they'll sell them on eBay. Okay. In a way, technology has made it very easy to sell something that you resell, or to sell something if you stole it, right? Because a lot of people have told me things like Craigslist and eBay are fraught with things that have been, gained.
Swap meets.
swap meets, yeah, all sorts of way. But you can use technology these days too, right? Okay. But internal controls are the policies and procedures that you have in place. I'm sure Walmart has them. I know if you go to Best Buy and you look up in the sky, what are you going to see? You're going to see cameras, right? Banks. Anybody here ever worked at a bank? Anybody? Okay. Banks have strong internal controls. You know who else has really strong internal controls? Casinos. You're exactly right there, Spencer. Why do casinos have a strong system of internal control? There is, and it's a very cash-oriented business. If you've been to a casino, and most of you aren't 21, so I know you probably haven't been there. Do you have to be 18 or 21 to go to a casino?
Depends on which one you go to. In Oklahoma, there's one that's 18 and older.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay. Well, that'll be something you can look forward to. But if you go to a casino, you know, you have got a plastic poker chip this big that can be worth, you know, $100 or more, depending on the casino you're at, right? It's very liquid, right? There are certain types of stores or businesses that are more susceptible to theft than others, but all of them are susceptible in a way, and some of them are in ways that you wouldn't think of. I'm always surprised at the stories I hear in this area that you'll have people who don't even have college educations who devise pretty ingenious ways to steal from their company. You know what I'm saying? I want to watch a little video here today. Well, let's actually go through the first few slides and then we're going to watch it. Okay? But going to the PowerPoints, you're not going to have the color version here for the first few slides. This is on chapter 8. The purpose of internal control is to protect your assets, okay? Largely cash, but other assets as well. To ensure reliable accounting, promote efficiency in your business, and urge adherence to company policies, okay? Now, anybody here who has had a job, unless you're just at an unbelievably undisciplined location or company, the first thing they do on the day is on your day one of your job is to start telling you kind of the rules of the business. Here's how we do things, and here's the policies and procedures we have in place, right? A lot of that is due to their internal control, okay? Now I want to switch over and I want to watch a video. And some of this audio is not going to be real clear, especially to you folks at home, but I still think it's worth watching. Let me give a little introduction to this, first of all. In the accompanying video, Kay Lemon discusses how she committed check tampering. Okay, this is a type of theft. Lemon began embezzling small amounts from her company. Then she became hooked on the extra perks her stolen money could provide. Eventually, the pressure of living with her crimes got to her, and she confessed. Okay? Now, I want you to watch this video, and I've seen this video many times. And I want you to tell me what your thoughts are, some of the things that come to mind as you watch this video. Okay? So let me start this, and then I'm going to get over there, and so you can pick it up on my mic. Okay? Be real quiet, though, so people can hear. All right.
I really wasn't caught or confronted, with what I had done. I just got to the point where I couldn't tolerate, what I was going through anymore and handle it myself. I felt I was very close to just breaking, completely. So I went home one night and told my husband what I had done. And after he trying to digest all of that, we contacted an attorney. And that's how it all came out.
Lemon, a grandmother, was the sole bookkeeper at a family-owned lighting supply store in Lincoln, Nebraska. She served 7 months in prison for stealing $416,000 from the business. Lemon said she concealed it from her husband by telling him the store owner had given her an interest in the company. She wrote company checks and reconciled the bank account. Lemon simply made out checks to herself and destroyed them when they came back from the bank. She would then add the amount of the embezzlement to the inventory account when she paid bills to the suppliers and factories.
If the bill was for $15,000, I would make the check out to them for the $15,000, but on the check stub, I would show $20,000 being paid to a given factory. And the $5,000 difference, then I would write a check to myself for that. Because you see, I also balanced the checkbooks. So there wasn't anyone else to, to catch the fact that there was a check that had been voided that then subsequently went through the bank that I had written. Basically, a very simple method. And as far as there being any controls on the other end in inventory, there was not, because the company had a perpetual inventory that was very inaccurate, extremely inaccurate. It had been going on, and no one had ever brought it up to date. The company that I worked for never really closed their doors on a given date and had an inventory count, even yearly. It just wasn't done. And so there was just no thorough checking on anything, just on absolutely anything.
Okay. All right. Thoughts of that. And I will tell you, I know some of the things that you'll say, but go ahead and say them anyway. What are some of your thoughts on watching that video? Yeah.
With technology today, her destroying the checks would not be possible because everything's online. So,
but here's the deal: is yes, everything is online, but do you think her owners were? I mean, not just in the recent years, but banks have always kept records of everything. Okay, but she was counting on accurately that her owners would not ever call the bank and check up on her. Okay, you're right in the sense that the bank offers us some very good chance, if we use it correctly, for internal control checks and balances. But everything she did there is possible now as well. What she wanted, though, is she wanted physical evidence at the company destroyed because she gambled correctly that her owners would never call the bank and check up on her. Okay? Other thoughts?
do all your books.
Okay. They had one person do all of their books, right? Now let me tell you, I used to be a financial statement auditor, okay, and I've done consulting since then, okay? And one of the things that we would do as financial statement auditors at the public accounting firm is we would evaluate their internal control structure that they have in place, okay? And let me tell you a scenario that occurred numerous times, is we would sit down at the end of the audit with the owner or owners of the company, and we would say, hey, as part of your audit, we evaluated the internal control structure. One of the things that we found is that there's certain key employees who have way too many responsibilities. And we're not so much worried that they're going to be overworked or something. It's just the fact that the way it is currently designed, there's no checks or balances on that person. And if this person chose to steal from you, it would not be that difficult because no one is checking his or her work. Okay? We would say, we can help you design a structure here, an internal control structure, that will give you much more assurance that, something like this won't happen because there'll be more checks and balances, right? And what do you think the owner of the business would say? Oh, yeah. Here's what they'd say. Dave, You're such a fine young man. We appreciate so much that you went to this trouble. And I know you're talking about Betty, and I know you're talking about Lois. But let me tell you, Betty and Lois, boy, they're great gals. They have worked, did you know they worked here since 1972? And they are wonderful ladies. Betty is the choir director at our church. And Lois, God bless Lois, ever since 1980, she makes a birthday cake for every employee here on their birthday. And matter of fact, there was a gentleman in our warehouse whose mother died, and Lois went up to him and said, you know, I'd kind of like to just be like your mother figure. I know your mom died, and you know, anything I can ever help you out with. So these women are saints, Dave, and I appreciate your internal control structure, and I appreciate your looking out for us, but we're just going to be okay.
Yeah, I know why she made all those cakes.
It's like, and sometimes they'll say, you know what, they hardly ever take a vacation day. And I'm like, you know why they never take a vacation day? Because they don't want anyone looking at their work, right? Now, when you watched this lady in this video, Kay Lemon, don't you think she probably fell into that category of a Betty or a Lois?
Yeah.
What do you think if I would have gone to this, what was a lighting supply or something that they said? If I would have said, you have this lady, Kay Lemon, who it seems like does everything around here. You really need to divide up those responsibilities. What do you think, before they found out about this, what do you think they'd have told me about old Kay Lemon? She's a wonderful gal. I mean, if you were in a dark alley at night and you saw this lady coming the other way, is this the sort of person you'd be afraid of?
Hold my checkbook.
Well, probably, maybe, now that you know who she is. But normally you wouldn't, would you? Okay? What does that tell you? Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. Okay? You know, on tests, I do different versions of the tests for my face-to-face people and for the TV people as well. But I do different versions of the test. So when you sit by somebody, the person sitting next to you has a different version of the test. I also do a seating arrangement for the test. And I take some of these precautions in a testing situation here at JCCC. And sometimes my students will give me a hard time, and they're like, well, don't you trust me? Don't you trust me? Do you think I'm a cheater? I'm a cheater? Don't you think I'm a cheater? Let me ask you this. If I plucked up 100 college students at random, how many of them, and I'm going to vehemently disagree with some of your answers, but I will ask you anyway, how many of those 100 college students will cheat if given the opportunity, with cheating defined as they will look at other people's papers, they will blatantly plagiarize or copy somebody's work and hand it in as their own, that sort of, I mean, how many people will, out of 100 college students chosen at random?
I'd say 80%.
95. Depends on how they can get away with
I
it.
disagree.
82.
I vehemently disagree with you, Jake. There's no way it's 95%. Because there are people who, I mean, I'm not a perfect human being, but I did not cheat in high school and I did not cheat in college. I just didn't do it. Just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I have a lot of students that won't cheat. Okay? But, so I think 95 is too high. Maybe you guys think.
I say 80.
I think if the person has, they're going to be able to get away with it. 100%, almost. I think people will almost do anything to graduate.
I think if someone's like, is stuck on an answer and they're just like, if that's what you're talking about, then yeah, I think a lot of kids
just getting
would
that
do
first step, just getting started.
No, I won't. I don't believe it's 80, 90%. We can agree to disagree. However, if what you're telling me is true, would I not be an absolute fool not to do everything in my power to try to prevent students from cheating. Okay? And yet these same students are like, hey, give us a break. What do you think? We're cheating? You think we're a bunch of, lowlifes? Okay? And but what you say to these students is, I'm not making a judgment on, Zach. I'm not making a judgment on Peter. What I know is that a certain percentage, let's even say it's low, let's say it's 30 or 40%, okay, of people will cheat if given the opportunity. Well, then what you just told me then is out of this room, 4 or 5 of you are blatant cheaters, right? Now, if I go into this and say 4 or 5 of you are blatant cheaters and I don't have policies and procedures in place to try to prevent that, okay? Now, the other thing sometimes people will say is, if people want to cheat, they will figure out a way to cheat. Or if people want to steal from a company, they will figure out a way to steal from a company. Okay? That's probably true, but that does not negate the absolute necessity to putting an internal control structure in place. Here's what I would say. This Kay Lemon video that you just saw, if there would have been strong internal control structure in place, I would venture to say she would not have stolen from the company. Do you agree or disagree? I agree. Okay. Here's the example I always give. Do not raise your hands. Okay? If I asked, how many of you have ever walked into a Walmart or to a Best Buy and taken a CD, the new CD that came out of your favorite band, how many people have put that under their jacket, walked out the door? I would venture to say of the 13 or 14 of you here, 0, at most 1, have actually taken a CD, put it under their coat, and walked out the store, right? And that's illegal, is it not? Still illegal to do that? Okay. Now, what if I asked you, don't raise your hands, how many of you have illegally burnt a CD for your friends? Or received a burnt CD from your friends? I would venture to say the majority of you. What's the difference? Both of those things are illegal. Are they not? But one of them, the alarm is going to go off at Best Buy, right? And the other, you're probably not going to get caught, are you? Okay? There are people in the world who won't do something if they think they will get caught. Now, Kay Lemon probably figured out in this video that she was simply, no one was watching her. She was not going to get caught. Correct?
Isn't her husband the one that turned her in or something?
No. What did the video say? She turned herself in. She turned herself in. What do you think of that? What's your thoughts on that?
She was stealing from her family. It's
probably
a family
what
business.
No, it was not her family business. It was a
someone-
family
all right,
business.
I thought it was her.
Why
family's
would she
business.
turn herself
That's it,
in?
Grandma.
Family business.
Well, no, I don't think she was about to get caught. I think, Gil, I think you're right. I've read more about this situation, the specific situation online. She felt so guilty. She felt so guilty. And she knew the repercussions of turning herself in. And she did it anyway, which means that the guilt that she was living with must have been pretty heavy. Correct? She stole $416,000. Okay? Now, usually there's a student here who says something like the following. She stole $416,000. How many months did she serve in prison? 6 or 7, yeah. That's a pretty good deal, man. I'd do that, right? Well, here's what they don't tell you, though. Here's what they don't tell you. Is chances are she only had to serve 6 months because she entered into agreement to pay that back over time. Okay? So let's put yourself in Kay Lemon's situation. You go to jail for 6 or 7 months. How do you think her family felt about that? How do you, totally embarrassed. How do you think her kids and her grandkids felt about that? What do you think her husband thought? What do you think she thought of herself? You could tell when she was talking about the situation, she had to kind of stop and catch herself, right? Because she was starting to get emotional. Okay? I don't think at the end she was enjoying her ill-gotten gains. Okay? Now here's the other thing is, do you think she's ever going to get a job in accounting again?
Nope.
No. That might have been part of the plea agreement. And yet she's got to pay back a significant amount of money. Okay? As a matter of fact, her and her husband's retirement plans might totally be kaput. Okay? Here's the other thing. Did you know that stolen money? Now, okay, let me back up. Let me back up. Do you think she had all that $416,000 sitting in a big bag full of money with a big dollar sign on it that she could just hand back? No. What did she spend that money on? And vacations, probably things that couldn't be retrieved. Now, if she bought things like a car or a new house, she might have had to sell those assets, right? But if she spent it on vacations for her family and stuff, that's gone, isn't it? Okay? Did you know that stolen money is taxable income? Did you know that? Not sales tax. Money that is stolen is taxable money. Okay? So, if you steal $400,000, you actually owe taxes on that money. So let's say she owes $120,000 taxes on that, on top of what she has to repay her company. Now, what's the IRS going to do about that? Do they want that money? Was it paid on a timely basis? No. Are there going to be penalties for not paying it? Yes. Is there going to be interest accrued on how late you are? Yes. You see the situation that this lady's in? And let me tell you, I've known people who had the cops after them and have had the IRS after them. They said you'd rather have the cops after you than the IRS. Once the IRS gets on you, they don't ever stop, do they?
Don't they lock up your bank accounts?
Well, they do all sorts of stuff. I've never worked for the IRS, but they do all sorts of stuff. And here's the other thing is you can't just declare bankruptcy and have your tax liabilities be gone. You can't do that. So this lady's situation, I don't know what she spends her money on, but I really am going to venture to say that in the end, the costs outweighed the benefits. Okay? And long after she's dead, she's probably going to be known as that old lady who stole $500,000 from that company. What happened to that company, I wonder? What do you think? They might have been, I don't know what happened to them. But she might have put people out of work, right? Okay, I know of another situation where a lady stole $80,000 from a business, and it was a brand new business, and it pretty much killed the business. Pretty much killed the business. They had to let everybody go. The owners had this dream of starting a business. When you have a brand new business, $80,000 cash is a lot of money, and it killed their working capital. They had to close the doors. Pretty sad story. Not the legacy I want to leave, right? Not the legacy I want to leave. But I think this is fascinating because internal control structures and putting these policies and procedures is so necessary. If you let people operate with no checks and balances, they'll do bad things. But a lot of them, if you have policies and procedures in place, they won't. You can never totally eliminate cheating in a classroom. But you can sure cut down on the percentage of people who do cheat. Do you know what I'm saying? And ultimately, you have to ask yourself too: do I want to be a cheater? Do I want to be a thief? You know, and that just depends on how you were raised and if you have, you know, ethics and morals and all that sort of stuff. That's a decision everybody has to ultimately make. But for people who don't have trouble making the wrong decision there needs to be policies and procedures in place to try to catch them, right? Okay. So that's what this chapter is about. I think this is kind of a fascinating chapter. Let's talk through at least the first slide or two in this presentation. there is the purpose of internal control up on the screen. Let's walk through the principles of internal control real quick. The first thing that you want to do is establish responsibilities. You want to say, who is in charge of doing what, right? So I might say, you are in charge of preparing the deposit, and this other person is in charge of making that deposit into the bank, and then this third person is in charge of recording the deposit in the books. Okay? Now that's also dividing up responsibilities, which will be up here in a second. But you want to establish responsibilities. Okay? If I want to make sure something does not get done at my house by my boys, I have 2 boys, what I'll tell them is say, hey, when I get home from work tonight, I want the trash to be emptied and I want the driveway to be swept. Do you think it's going to get done? No, because I haven't established responsibilities. A much better way to do it is to say, you need to take the trash out and you need to sweep the driveway. And if you don't do it, I will beat you. No, I don't say that. I don't say that. But I say exactly who is supposed to do what, right? Because then, if the driveway is not swept, I know which person to say, hey, this was a responsibility I gave you. I didn't give anybody else. I gave it to you, right?
Love you so much.
Love you so much. And that's why I'm going to beat you. I'm just kidding. I am kidding. Okay, we need to maintain adequate records, okay? You have to maintain adequate records. That means backup in regards to journal entries, things like bank statements. You need to have a policy that and procedures in place so that you can retrieve important documents or source documents that are going to give evidence to that you made the right journal entries and those sort of things, right? If you see a journal entry for a purchase of a computer monitor, you need to have the invoice in regards to that, right? You can't just say, oh, we lost that. Sorry about that, right? You need to maintain adequate records in your business, okay? You need to insure assets and bond key employees, okay? What does it mean to insure assets? Well, you guys are kind of familiar with that because most of you have an asset that's insured. What am I talking about? Your automobile. Most of you have insured that automobile so that if it gets hit or you get in a wreck or gets stolen, you can retrieve monies in order to buy a new car, correct? What does it mean to bond key employees? What does that mean?
Like interacting?
Well, I know where you're going, but that's not exactly where that's going. Bond key employees. What it kind of is, in a way, what it is kind of in a way is almost getting an insurance policy on an employee, okay? So let's say that Erica was a key employee and I had a small business and she did a lot of things for my business. What I might do is bond her. Now let's say I didn't bond her. And let's say that I found that she stole $30,000 from my business, okay? Now if she was not bonded, here's the situation that often happens. I catch you stealing I've caught that you stole $30,000 from my business, okay, Erica? So I haul you into my office, and what do you think happens?
She denies it.
Well, let's say I got on videotape. What? It's amazing what happens. First of all, you'd start to cry, right? Oh, I'm so sorry, and then the excuses would come, the rationalization. Here's what's happened: is my husband. I know you're not married, but if you were, my husband lost his job, and my kids need braces, and my mom has cancer, and all these sort of things. A tree fell on our house, and it broke the roof, and it's raining into my... She would make all these rationalizations, right? This is what happens. People who cheat, people who steal, they rationalize it, okay? But then I would say, well, do you have that money that you can give back to me? And what's she going to say? Of course not. Let me tell you what often is the case. Often in this situation, the person in my position will not press charges. They will probably let you go and fire you, although I've known businesses that didn't do it. Why don't they press charges?
Because they don't want it public.
Yeah, because it's I'm not going to get any money back from you. And by pressing charges, it's almost kind of embarrassing, isn't it? But also, I may be a soft-hearted guy, and I know you and your husband and your kids and all that sort of stuff, and I feel bad for you, okay? And I know I'm not going to get the money back anyway, okay? Now, here's the difference. If I bond you, Erica, if I bond you as an employee, what I've basically done is buy an insurance policy on you, okay? So that if you steal $30,000, say, for my business, I can retrieve some of that. Maybe not all 30, but maybe 22 of it, okay? And then, you know who is in charge of deciding if they press charges on you? The bonding company. And how do you think your sad story is going to play for them? They don't care, right? They're going to go after you, okay? So, not only do I think you should bond certain employees if they're key employees, but I think you should let them know that they're bonded. You should let them know that they're bonded. Does that make sense? So that you know you're not going to get out of this with tears, okay, and rationalizations. And probably that insurance bonding company or whatever, they are more adept at coming at you and knowing how to get you, right? Make sense? But then I also retrieve some of my money as well, okay? Separate record keeping from custody of assets. What does that mean? Well, what that means is, Gil, let's say that you are in charge of my warehouse and the custody of all my assets. I do not want to give you responsibility for record keeping of those assets, okay? Otherwise, you could just steal stuff and then make the appropriate journal entry. This is what the situation was with Kay Lemon. She had custody of what asset? Cash. And she had record keeping of that cash. So she stole the asset, she stole the cash, and then she just made a journal entry, didn't she? Bad idea. What you want to do is say, you are in charge of the assets, and this other person over here is in charge of the record keeping. And you know what? I don't want to hire two people who are brothers, or boyfriend and girlfriend, or husband and wife. This is why a lot of companies have restrictions on you can't hire people like that. Because if you guys are best friends or brothers or whatever, the chances of you colluding are a lot much greater than if you guys are strangers, correct? Make sense? This is why I do a seating arrangement for tests. It's not a sure thing, but if you're sitting by somebody you don't know, there's probably less likelihood of you. First of all, you don't know if they're a good student or not. Secondly, you don't know if they're the sort of person who will turn you in. And you'd be surprised how many students will come up to me and say, hey, in the test, so-and-so is looking off my paper. Okay? But you don't know that person as opposed to if it was your best friend. Okay? Separate record keeping from custody of assets. Divide responsibilities for related transactions, and we talked about this as well, right? If I have this sort of business that receives checks in the mail, what I might want to do is I say, Brian, you open up the mail, and then Brett, you make the deposit. Peter, you're going to take the deposit, and then Jake, you're going to actually make the journal entry. But I'll try to divide that up. Now, that's hard to do in a business where you only have one employee, isn't it? Like Kay Lemon. I bet you there weren't a whole lot of accountants in that business. She might have been the only one. Okay? But where possible, divide up responsibilities. Don't give the whole job to one person. Apply technological controls. What does that mean? Cameras. What's probably the oldest and most famous technological control? A cash register. Have you ever been to a restaurant that says, if we don't offer you a receipt, Your meal's free? Yes. Why do they do that? They want that recorded in there. Okay? I used to work at a pizza place when I was a teenager, and the manager was stealing from the company, and here's how he would do it. He would go out, wait on a customer, they would order money and everything. Then when he never put it into the system. Then he would go make the pizza, he would serve the pop, and when they came up to pay, he had just given them a handwritten bill, okay? Which is often the case back then, not so much now. And what he would act like is he would act like the cash register was not working up front, and he'd say, I have to go ring you up in the back. Is that okay? And so now this was also before the days of debit cards. So they'd give him 40, two $20 bills. He'd go back, make change out of his own pocket, and he made $35. You see what I'm saying? Because that record never went into the cash register. So when they did a cash reconciliation between what the cash register said should be in the drawer and what is actually in the drawer, there was no problem. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Now I'm always afraid I'm giving my students ideas on how to steal. You ever been to Taco Bell and it said you order a couple chalupas and a Diet Coke and it says you owe $2.92. If you are asked to pay a different amount, call 1-800-TACO-BELL. You ever seen that little sign at the drive-thru? Yeah. That's part of the way. That's a technological control that's trying to bring you in to help them. Okay? You need to perform independent and regular reviews. If you work at a bank, chances are that they do a cash drawer count every now and then. They probably don't tell you when they're going to do it, but every now and then they spring it on that they're going to do a cash count. Okay? Or you should review people's work. Do you think anybody was reviewing Kay's work? Do you think anybody was going to the bank statements and checking on her work? Nobody was, because they all trusted her, didn't they? All right, let's stop there. Let me give you some homework. I want you to read this chapter, okay? And I want you to do some homework before next class period. What I want you to do is I want you to do exercise 8.1. Exercise 8.1. And I want you to do exercise 8.3. All right? That's all I'm going to have you do. Exercise 8.1, exercise 8.3. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.